Nice.
All right, 1971. At this point during the Vietnam War, helicopter losses are becoming insurmountable. They're losing so many men and so many helicopters in helicopter crashes. Helicopters are getting shot down. They need to figure out a different way to get soldiers onto the battlefield in the right location, deep in enemy territory, that doesn't rely on helicopters. And Billy Waugh is one of the main dudes helping to pioneer this new strategy. And this eventually evolves into what we know today as halo jumping, high altitude, low opening. And what that means is it's different than normal airborne operations, right? When you see a normal airborne operation, you see that when the soldier jumps out of the plane, he then has a rope that's connected to his parachute, and once that rope reaches its end, it automatically pulls the parachute open.
Yeah, so I'm gonna big brain this for a second. Yeah, so basically what he's talking about, and to use more technical terms, the rope that is connected to, so standard parachute first, when they're in their bird and they're getting ready to jump out, what they hook up is, it's not simply a rope, it's called a static line. It's basically the static line connects to a what's the word I'm looking for? The base cable inside the plane that is hooked up to with like a carabiner or something. That static line is then connected to the chute, so that, you know, normally you see like skydivers, when they jump out of the plane, they'll actually pull their chute, they'll actually pull the ripcord on their gear to deploy the chute. Zip line is attached directly to the ripcord of a paratrooper chute. So literally, as they jump out of the plane, the minute that static line goes taut, it's pulling the chute, and so you can see they're deploying immediately. The halo is basically like skydiving. They're not static lining it. They're literally jumping from like 3-5 miles up. They're free fall. They're doing skydiving basically, but they're doing a free fall of about 3 to 6 miles. They have to time it perfectly with an altimeter, and then they're manually pulling their chute at like what? I think they pull the chute from 1 mile or less up. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, halos usually pull the chute 1 mile or less from the ground. So it's like, we hear that and we just think it's skydiving, but it's that, you know, the military classifies that as halo, high altitude, low opening, like Nick was saying. But that's the big difference, is you are not using the static line to pull your chute. God, shit. Pirate, my brain is short-circuiting on that. I do, but my brain is not orienting properly, because I'm focused on this, I think. But yeah, it's essentially, yeah, it's like skydivers pull their chute, like, you know, normal civilian, you know, casual skydivers, they pull their chutes way above ground. Like, they are, yeah, they are, your standard skydiver, they're pulling their chute 2 to 3 miles up. You know, they'll free fall for a couple seconds. They'll do their wee, I'm free falling, and then they pull the chute like 2-3 miles up, and then float down. With the military, you know, number one, military halo jumps start higher, because the whole purpose is they're starting really fucking high in the air, so they are out of any artillery range. They're out. Hopefully they're out of, you know, I don't know if they'd be out of radar range, but they're definitely out of visual range. So it's designed so that when people do a halo jump, people are not going to know they're coming. That's where also the low open the low open comes from. They're pulled and shoot so low that, you know, you're not presenting a nice big target of your canopy floating to the ground. You're basically pulling the canopy enough to halt your downward progress, so that when you're hitting the ground, you're not shattering every bone in your body. So it's basically, you know, the whole purpose of the halo is to slow your descent just enough that you're hitting the ground not too hard to snap bones. You're still hitting it pretty freaking hard. But it's like, it's all stealth. It's, you know, getting behind enemy lines. It's, you know, slipping in so the enemy can't see you. The whole purpose is so the enemy doesn't know you're doing this. And that's why they open it so low. So it's like, This is some serious shit. Well, Zax, it depends on how high altitude they're going. Like this is, back then I'm not sure how high they were going. If they were like 6 miles up, then yes, they'd be wearing oxygen masks. I don't know with this particular operation. I don't know how high they were flying. If they were 6 miles up, yes, they would definitely be using oxygen masks.
For him, and then he drifts to the ground. Halo jumping is exactly what it sounds like. The plane is going to be much higher at a higher altitude, high altitude, low opening, and then you're going to free fall without a static line. You're going to keep track of your own altitude, and then you're going to pull your parachute at the last possible minute to get it open and keep you from splattering all over the ground. And this is...
I knew Nick was going to explain, but I wanted to have my own little big brain moment. So it's going to be a little bit of a repeat, but I just wanted to show you guys that I knew what it was. Halo did it right, or sorry, Godzilla did it right, and the old movie Navy SEALs. Godzilla in 2014 did it, but then the movie Navy SEALs also did it. So that I think, cinematically speaking, I'm pretty sure Navy SEALs, the movie, is the first ones that did like a Halo jump on film. I think. I'm pretty sure.
This is still the technique that's used by special forces to this day to get somebody deep into enemy territory unnoticed. And not only does Billy help pioneer this technique, he is the first man to ever Halo jump into combat on November 28th, 1970, when he jumped into Laos. From there, Billy is in theater conducting multiple Halo jump operations until SOG is eventually disbanded on May 1st, 1972. SOG ends up getting disbanded because obviously back home, the Vietnam War as a whole is very unpopular. Dealing with that unpopularity back home, a lot of the people in the conventional side of the military like to blame all the special forces guys for always getting them into deep shit, so it led to a lot of hostility on special forces in general, which is the...
Wait, hang on. I missed some of that here.
SOG is eventually disbanded on May 1st, 1972. SOG ends up getting disbanded because obviously back home, the Vietnam War as a whole is very unpopular. Dealing with that unpopularity back home, a lot of the people in the conventional side of the military like to blame all the special forces guys for always getting them into deep shit, so it led to a lot of hostility on special forces in general, which is the catalyst that led to SOG getting disbanded. By December of 1972, America launches Operation Linebacker 2, which is a massive bombing campaign on the North Vietnamese, and they continue to bomb them pretty much all day and all night for about 11 days straight, dropping 20 tons of bombs on the enemy. In order to get that to stop, the NVA agreed to come to the negotiating table, and by January of 1973, the Paris Peace Accords have been signed, officially bringing an end to the Vietnam War. The Paris Peace Accords essentially said that both sides of the war would stop military activity in neutral territories like Laos and Cambodia, even though neither of them were actually there, allegedly.
Of course. Of course.
After America leaves, the North and South Vietnamese will come to a peaceful agreement amongst themselves. It didn't really work out that way, but that was how it was supposed to happen. Billy is super pissed off. He wants to keep fighting and win this war, but that's just not in the cards, and he's so pissed off that he basically tells his chain of command, okay, I'm 43 years old, I'm just gonna retire. The chain of command reluctantly agrees, and because he's Billy Waugh, he's a tier 1 operator, dude is a living legend at this point. They ask him, is there anything special you want to do for your retirement? And he thinks about it for a second. He's like, yeah, I want to Halo jump into the parade field at Fort Bragg with some of my best friends, and then after we land, I want to dump our parachutes, take the rest of the day off, and get fucking hammered right there on that spot. And that's exactly what he does.
Nice!
And with that, Billy Waugh's legendary military career officially comes to an end. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the beginning of the story.
There we go.
So the legendary Billy Waugh goes into retirement. He goes back home to Texas, and from there, he doesn't really know what to do. He's legitimately spent more time in combat operation as an adult than he has in the United States of America. So he just does what a lot of veterans do, and he gets a job being a mailman. He works that job every day for 5 years, and he absolutely hates every fucking second of it. In his own words,
like, let's not forget. I mean, he may not have. Okay, so this is not like a situation of like PTSD. Yeah, with everything Nick's saying, he doesn't have PTSD, but a lot of these soldiers that were in heavy combat during Vietnam, they don't legitimately know how to function once they get back into civilian life, because they basically their entire life is the military and combat and the very regimented military operations. Kaibo, see, I wasn't even gonna say he has PTSD. Because it's not. It's not post-traumatic stress. It's his routine. It's not like, it's not like a psychological disorder. It's just, he has been trained and has lived the life of the military as a killing machine for years, decades. They don't train you how to turn it off. They train you how to kill. They don't train you how to turn that off. And so him returning to civilian life is basically like, he probably has no idea what the fuck to do with himself. Yeah, like, he is Delta. They like to fight. It's what he knows. The difference between him and Rambo is, Rambo had PTSD. Billy Waugh is just, it's all he knows. He doesn't have PTSD. So my guess is civilian life feels too slow. It probably feels way too slow. It feels way too soft. And I'm guessing, yeah. I think it might have been a little bit. I think structurally, I think it might have been okay, because if he's working as a mailman, then he's got a routine. He wakes up, he does whatever he does in the morning. Chances are he's probably doing a fuck ton of PT on his own in the morning, keeping himself in top shape. Does his routine as a postal worker, as a mailman, comes home, does whatever. So he probably did have some structure, but it was slow structure and it was soft structure. And for someone like him, it ain't gonna go. That's not gonna work. Soft is tantamount to torture for him, I think.
Billy Waugh said, and I quote, "Let's face it, for a person like me, post office work was worse than death. I do not ever recall feeling fear, not up till that moment in my life. Not in combat before, not anywhere since. But there in that post office, I feared my life was over, that I would wind up some old man drinking at the end of a bar."
Stop trying to scare us.
And then after 5 long years, one day at home, his phone rings on just some random day of the week. And on the other end of the line is a voice that he recognizes from his military career, but he's not exactly sure where. And that voice asks him, "Are you ready to get back in action?" And 48-year-old Billy Waugh immediately says, "Yes." The voice...
Okay. I think call me crazy, but the moment he hears, "Are you ready to get into action?" again, I think his reaction might have been something more along the lines of, yes.
Voice on the other end of the line then tells Billy, "Okay, I'll have a down payment wired into your bank account. I need you to report in 48 hours to this specific hotel at 3 p.m., that exact time. Pack enough clothes for a year. You're going overseas for at least 6 months, but potentially much longer." Next morning, Billy goes to the post office, immediately quits his job, heads over to the bank, checks his bank account. He has twice his annual salary deposited into his account. At the same time, there's 3 other guys there checking in at the exact same time. He gets to talking to them. They're there for the same exact thing. There's a communications guy, there's a handheld weapons instructor, there's a medic, and then there's Billy, an expert in literally everything else. At this point, Billy's thinking this is some CIA operation. Awesome, I'm in.
No.
They wait for the...
Grumpy, this is my headcanon. In my headcanon, he went, "Oh." Okay, it's my headcanon.
5th guy to show up. The 5th guy shows up, and he is the lawyer of the client that they are now working for. The lawyer then informs them they are all going to be going to Libya, where they're going to be training men and consulting for Muammar Gaddafi. At this point, alarm bells are going off in Billy's head. This is definitely not a CIA operation. The CIA is against Gaddafi at this point. He's sponsoring terrorism all over the world. America is not trying to help this guy out. Who the fuck are these people? Why do they want Billy to go help this guy? This is not a state-funded operation. So Billy starts asking questions. He is assured by the lawyer that everything is above board. They're not doing anything illegal. Billy asks who the client is, and the client is Edwin P. Wilson, a former CIA operative. This guy was later put on trial for illegally running guns to Libya and other hostile governments to America. During those trials, multiple key witnesses that were testifying against him mysteriously wound up dead. One guy died in a bar fight. Another guy died in a boating accident when his boat mysteriously exploded. So Billy, not buying that this was all above board, makes some calls to his contacts at the CIA, and the CIA is like, yeah, we don't have any operations going on in Libya right now. What the fuck are you talking about? Then Billy gets a return call from some voice he doesn't recognize, some guy he doesn't know, that asks him to meet up at a restaurant in Arlington, and Billy agrees. He goes there. The guy identifies himself as working for the CIA, shows his badge, shows all his credentials. Billy's satisfied that this guy does in fact work for the CIA. The CIA guy then explains the whole situation, that this is not a CIA-funded operation, but the CIA would like Billy to work for them. The CIA is keeping an eye not only on Gaddafi, but on Edwin P. Wilson as well, and they want Billy to go in and be their eyes and ears on the ground. He also
No, it was not the lawyer though saying this. Not what he's talking about right here. This meeting is a CIA guy, not that lawyer. So okay, so what we've got is this lawyer that is working for Edward P. Edward P. Wilson. Has got these guys to train Gaddafi's people, which is not a CIA op, but the CIA would like him to go ahead and follow through with this and basically be their little spy on what they're doing. So it's basically a black op inside a black op. It's black op inception.
also gives Billy a camera and tells him to take pictures of any sensitive military equipment that he comes across going to all the bases in Libya. Billy then goes and does that for 2 years, constantly reporting back intel and pictures to the CIA, giving them information that would eventually lead up to Edwin P. Wilson getting convicted. The bad news, when your boss gets convicted, you're out of a job, but the good news is Billy is now in good standing as an independent contractor for the CIA. From here, Billy falls off the grid for the next like 10 years doing God knows what for the CIA. It's all redacted.
Oh, there we go.
So the next time we know what Billy's actually up to is in 1991, when at the age of 63, he is sent to Khartoum, Sudan, aka K-Town. Now, K-Town in the 1990s is basically Mos Eisley from Star Wars.
You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Simply put, this is the real-world location where all the Bond villains hang out. And one of the new up-and-comers is a religious fanatic that's forming a new terrorist organization known as Al-Qaeda, and that guy's name is Osama bin Laden. Also worth mentioning, inside the CIA, nobody wants this job working in K-Town because it's in Sudan, it's hot as fuck, it's super dangerous, and if you're a white guy, you stick out like a sore thumb.
Joke's on you, I'm into that shit!
On top of that, because...
Well, okay, I'm not sure if that was the best place for the Skeletor meme, but god damn it, it was funny.
Nobody else wants this job, that means Billy's gonna be hard to replace, meaning he basically is gonna be able to do whatever the fuck he wants, how he wants to do it, and nobody's gonna get too mad at him because they don't want to have to fire and find somebody else to do this job. Which comes into play right away because the CIA wants to know what Billy's plan is, and Billy's just like, what do you mean? I'm just gonna go in there and I'm gonna keep an eye on the guy. But the CIA is like, but how? How are you gonna keep an eye on the guy? And Billy's like, I'm gonna do all the obvious shit. Whenever he leaves in a car, I'm gonna follow him in my car. I'm gonna take pictures of him all the time. I'll find another building that overlooks his building and keep tabs on him. And then every morning and evening, I'm gonna get in athletic wear and I'm gonna jog around his compound and around the general area so everybody just sees me as that old man that's running for his health. And the office nerds at the CIA are like, yeah, but you're an elderly white man. You'll stick out like a sore thumb. And he goes, yeah, that's kind of the point. That a lot of people in the Sudan see Americans as doing stupid shit. And to them, jogging is stupid shit. Okay, it's Sudan. This is Africa in the 1990s, okay? The notion that Americans eat so much food so often that they then have to go outside and run around for no reason other than to not be fat is so unfathomably dumb to these people. It makes perfect sense and nobody will bat an eye when they see a white elderly man jogging around. But naturally, the office nerds over at the CIA are like, well, we don't really think that's a good idea. I know that you think that based on, I don't know, your previous 40 years of experience of operating, probably been doing it longer than I've been alive, but I don't think that's a good idea. Instead, what you should do is wear a disguise. So the CIA went out and hired a Hollywood prop house to make Billy a rubber disguise. So they give this mask to Billy. This mask is like from here up so that the neck and face match for skin tone, and he has gloves as well. And since he's in Africa, he is now going to be portraying a black man. And Billy is like blackface. You want me to do blackface while I spy on a terrorist?
I don't believe you people.
Huh? What do you mean, you people?
Okay, now this fucking fits. Yeah, they literally wanted to Tropic Thunder his ass. The actual fuck. Yeah, and Zeb, that was the next point that I was gonna bring up. Is how in the actual fuck did they expect him to operate in the fucking Sudan wearing what is undoubtedly a latex mask and gloves? The motherfucker would be consistently sweating.
In all honesty, it's the biggest piece of dog shit that I have ever heard.
Like, he would get found out instantly because he would be sweating balls the entire time. He probably would pass out from the heat because that latex traps the heat, so the inside of that mask would feel like a fucking oven. This is stupidly insane.
What do you mean, you people?
And Billy doesn't really care about that. Like, it's a military operation. We all know the rules. It's not actually blackface if you're working for the U.S. government.
Blackface is wrong. It's racist. You cannot do it. Okay? Then you see them Navy SEALs commercials. You're like, all right, well, kind of. Sometimes you could do it. Right? The whole Navy SEALs commercial is like, look how cool blackface is on a helicopter.
The real problem is the mask is absolutely ridiculous. When you put a mask over your head, obviously your head is now disproportionately large. The lips don't actually move. And Billy said a combination between the mask just being disproportionately large for his head and the over-exaggerated features of the mask, the lips of the mask were so large that when he drove his car, he had to turn his head down so that he could actually see where the fuck he was going. So he's driving around town like this all day. And the worst part, it's Sudan. It's 120 degrees there and nobody has air conditioning and he's wearing a rubber helmet and rubber gloves 24/7. It fucking sucks. He's sweating his ass off the entire time and he's a 63-year-old man. But you know what? Fuck it. If that's what the CIA wants, that's what the CIA is gonna get. Billy does.
Oh, okay, here's my question. If I didn't realize that the helmet, mask, and everything was that big, how the fuck was he not made immediately? Do you would think that people native to that region would take one look at him and go, that's fake? I don't see how he could even function. No, I don't think they were hopping up on opium the whole time. It's alright, you say he's getting his back. Alright, I'll let it
just
cook.
that.
I'm a dude playing a dude disguised as another dude.
So this goes on for a little while, and then one of the CIA office nerds comes out to check on Billy, and Billy is like, haha, time to put your mask on, homie. And we've all had this moment, you know.
Wait, hang on. I want to hear that.
So this goes on for a little while, and then one of the CIA office nerds comes out to check on Billy, and Billy is like, haha, time to put your mask on, homie. And we've all had this moment, you know, where the boss comes down from his office at work and he's been making everybody do stupid shit and it's finally his turn to experience how dumb what they're making you do actually is. So the CIA office guy gets his rubber mask and his rubber gloves, puts it on, and hops in the car with Billy. And this is Africa. There's no traffic laws. Billy's weaving in and out of traffic, driving like a bat out of hell. The CIA guy's already getting nervous just from how he's driving. The CIA guy looks down. There's a big ass hole in the floor of the car because Billy's driving some 15-year-old beat up Toyota. They roll up on a military checkpoint that they obviously have to stop at to not get shot. Billy stops the car. Dude walks right up, shoves his AK right into Billy's window. Billy's completely chill. This is just day-to-day shit for him. CIA office guy shitting his pants. And when you get within like, I don't know, 6 feet of somebody wearing one of these masks, it's very obvious to everybody that you are in fact wearing a mask. So they're about to get caught. But Billy just like bribes the guy with money and cigarettes per usual, daily thing for him. They let him pass right through. But the CIA guy is like having a panic attack while he's inside of this rubber mask in 120-degree weather, thinking he's gonna get killed in Sudan.
Mr. Ford, you all right? I had no idea.
All that combined with Billy continuing to drive like a bat out of hell, he ends up getting his CIA handler to puke inside of this rubber mask and is just like,
Nice.
can't take it off, man. We don't want to blow our cover, right? So he just lets this dude bake inside this rubber mask with his own vomit in 120-degree desert heat. So Billy continues,
that's
shows him everything he
nasty.
needs to see. This dude's just having the worst time of his life, takes him back, drops him off, and yeah, Billy didn't have to wear the mask after that anymore. So now Billy gets to do this
Thank
job the way
God.
he actually wants to do it, and he proceeds to just be a stone-cold gangster about it the entire time, right? He's a 63-year-old man that's been operating for 40 years. He doesn't give a fuck about anything. He's jogging around Bin Laden's compound every single morning. He says he gets within like 10 feet of them on multiple occasions, almost weekly at this point. He's tailing their cars wherever they go. Bin Laden's got like 10 bodyguards with him at all times. At one point, Billy's tailing Bin Laden's Mercedes in his car, and as he's following, one of the guards in the back seat turns around and notices Billy is right behind him and lifts up his AK and points it at him. Billy doesn't even flinch, is just sitting there at this stoplight or stop sign, grabs a fake air grenade and just motions pulling the pin with his teeth and throwing it at him, like literally just telling the dude, go ahead, shoot me, fucking see what happens.
Anything happens to us, your home, your family, gone.
And guess what Osama bin Laden's bodyguard does?
Not a damn thing.
Reflecting on this exact moment later in life, Billy said, and I quote, "My attitude with these guys was always very simple. Fuck them. My guns are just as good as theirs." This might be the most badass old man to exist ever. So Billy continues to basically overtly
Okay. You guys remember we watched Nick's video about what's his name? The video that was the get off my lawn. The gangster old man from the Revolutionary War, who when the redcoats came, after Paul Revere rode by, the redcoats showed up, and he basically just went after Sam Whitmore. Thank you. Yeah. Billy Waugh makes Sam Whitmore look like a schoolboy. Okay? Billy Waugh is the most, stone cold badass I think we've seen at this point. We've seen badasses on this show, and they're all badasses in their own right. This man is kind of putting them to fucking shame right now. Okay? I don't know, I kind of would put Billy Waugh against any of these badasses that we've seen.
spy on these guys, and he ends up getting an apartment building that overlooks Osama bin Laden's compound. And then he just spends a ton of time hanging out on the roof, overlooking, taking pictures, looking at him with binoculars and all kinds of shit. And again, it doesn't seem that irregular because everybody in Sudan just kind of hangs out on their roof because there's no air conditioning and it's cool up there with the wind. So he's just sitting up on top of the roof in the middle of the desert under some shade, spying on Osama bin Laden. And over time, he starts to realize just how insanely devoted all of these guys' followers are. This guy's not just a leader, he is a spiritual leader. These people believe that if they do what he's saying, they're going to get to go to heaven, and he recognizes that that is extremely dangerous. Now remember, this is 1991, and at this point, Osama bin Laden is not what he eventually turns into yet, but Billy sees all the potential and, more importantly, all the intent there, so he comes to the conclusion, we should just kill this guy and be done with it. So Billy ends up writing a mission proposal. He knows absolutely everything about Osama bin Laden at this point. He knows when he wakes up, he knows when he goes to bed, he knows when he eats breakfast, he knows when he prays, he knows when he's getting into his car, and he knows where he's running his errands inside of that car. He knows absolutely everything about this guy's daily routine.
And they're not going to let him touch him.
One more CIA guy and one more car. So it's going to be Billy, his car, a CIA guy, and another car. And what's going to happen is the CIA guy is going to get in a head-on collision with Osama bin Laden's car, and then Billy's going to pull up right behind him, and then when Osama bin Laden and all his bodyguards get out to start yelling because he caused a car wreck, Billy's going to come up behind him and just shoot everybody in the head. Okay, it's a good plan. 2 guys, 2 cars, 1 suppressed MP5, grab Osama bin Laden's dead corpse, throw it in the trunk, drive to the Iranian embassy, throw it over the wall with a couple of flashbang grenades to get everybody's attention, get a ton of news coverage all over it, and then walk away. This proposal makes it all the way to the desk of President Bill Clinton, and Bill Clinton sends a response back to the CIA.
Oh, no.
I'm paraphrasing, but it basically said, We're not doing this. Please don't recommend anything like this ever again. At that point, it becomes clear that the CIA is not actually going to be allowed to do anything about this guy, so Billy's pulled off the mission, and Osama bin Laden is just kind of left alone to do whatever he's going to do. Later in life, Billy reflected on this, and with hindsight being 2020, he said that if he would have known that bin Laden was going to go on to launch terror attacks at multiple U.S. embassies, the USS Cole, and the World Trade Center, he absolutely wowould have went rogue and taken him out himself. He had every opportunity in the world at the time. All right, 1993.
The most painful part of that is the hindsight. That's the painful part. Like this is like one of those. This is like one of the situations like which if you could have, stopped, who back in the 1940s. Would you do it, and how would it change everything? And this is one of those, like, because it's so close to, like, time-wise, because it's so close to us, it's like, that hurts. Now, would it have prevented, the U.S. going the route it did with precautionary thing? Excellent chance of it. Is there a chance someone else may have done something in his stead? Also a possibility, but it's like the fact that he was so close and could have stopped this long before it ever had the chance to happen is like, God damn it. And I would wager after 9/11 happened and everything came out, Billy, it must have been a gut punch to him. This must have been an absolute gut punch to Billy. Like, fuck, I could have done something about this. Like, I was right there. I was 10 feet from him. I could have prevented all of this from happening. And he did it. And that, I really fear that ate at him for the rest of his life after 9/11. That's something like, granted, he didn't do anything wrong, but it's something he had to, quote unquote, live with for the rest of his life, that he could have prevented 9/11, and he did it. And while he was in no way, shape, or form at fault, because, he had his orders, and he couldn't see the future, I have to imagine that ate at his gut for the rest of his life. And for a man like Billy Waugh, that must have been living torture. To have to live with that. Suck.
In the world at the time. All right, 1993, Billy gets called in for a top secret gamma level mission. I didn't know what gamma level mission meant. Apparently it just means like super duper top secret. International intelligence organizations have picked up a phone call that Carlos the Jackal wants a new bodyguard and is being sent one. Now, if you don't know, in 1993, Carlos the Jackal is the most notorious terrorist of all time. He's conducted pretty much every flavor of terrorism that there is, from bombings to shootings, assassinations, hostage situations, all of them, and he's done it all over the world. So pretty much every first world country wants to get a hold of this guy. The problem is that he's been off the grid for like a decade, and a lot of people actually believe that he's dead. So in order to take down Carlos the Jackal, they're going to have to go in and prove that he's actually even alive. And in order to do that, they're going to have to get up close and personal with a camera to get a clear picture. So in order to do that, they call up the best of the best, 65-year-old Billy Waugh. So they bring Billy in, they brief him, they tell him when and where the security guard is supposed to show up, and surprise, surprise, it's Billy's favorite place, Khartoum, Sudan. So Billy gets into Khartoum, Sudan. He's leading a 4-man surveillance team, and they are tasked with hunting down Carlos the Jackal. They show up at the airport that the bodyguard is flying.
Now, full disclosure, I know how this ends because Nick talked about it on the Unsub podcast. Kind of makes me wish I hadn't seen that episode, because he did talk about how this ends. It's a little surprising how it ends.
into, pretending to be businessmen having lunch, and then as they identify the bodyguard, they start following him. He goes out into the parking lot, gets in a white Toyota, they're tailing the guy, they tail him for like 45 minutes, and then suddenly he just does a U-turn. So they do a U-turn and they follow him, and then he goes for a little bit longer, does another U-turn, at which point they know that he knows that they're following him, and they can't keep following him because this guy's just gonna do U-turns all day long. So they break contact and go back to the U.S. Embassy. So now the only lead that they have is that they're looking for this white Toyota. So they're constantly all just driving around the city for weeks trying to find this white Toyota again. And then one day they find the car right outside this clinic. They presume because Carlos the Jackal's getting up there in age and he has a lot of health issues that he's inside the clinic getting treatment for something. Now the problem is right outside this clinic is this open air market where people are just selling shit, food, vegetables, whatever. So there's a bunch of people walking by all over the place. And you have to remember, this is 1993. They don't have the super nice cameras that we had today. They don't have little tiny cameras with all this awesome auto focusing that's going to be able to get a clear picture. It's going to take a skilled photographer, which Billy is, to be able to get this picture, but they're going to have to get Carlos the Jackal to stand still in this marketplace without people in the way. Now Billy sees the Jackal and his bodyguards starting to walk out of this clinic, and if he can't get them to stop and stand still for a minute with a clear shot with his camera, he's not going to be able to get a picture to prove the guy's alive to get the green light to capture him. So he needs to figure out how to get Carlos the Jackal to stand still for a minute without drawing any attention to himself so that he doesn't realize that he's being hunted and run off. So Billy's thinking fast. Okay, got to get Carlos the Jackal to stand still. How do I get somebody to stand still? I get him to look at something. Okay, middle-aged guy, alcohol, womanizer. What's he want to look at? Tits. Don't have any tits. Okay, next best idea. A fight. I got to start a fight. He looks over to his partner, Greg. Instigate a fight right now.
Yo, hit that director in the face. Really hard.
Sorry, man.
So Greg, the CIA guy, immediately goes up to one of the vendors, starts screaming, "You cheated me, you cheated me," instigates this fight. Obviously, everybody in the surrounding area starts looking because that's just what you do when a fight breaks out, including Carlos the Jackal. And this gets him to stand still long enough for Billy to get a ton of up-close, personal, clear pictures of Carlos the Jackal. After Billy gives Greg the signal that he has the pictures that he needs, Greg apologizes, pulls out money, hands it to the vendor. No big deal, everything's fine. They then tail Carlos the Jackal all the way back to this shitty apartment building that he's held up in. But they can't do anything yet. They have to verify that it's him, but at least now they know where he's at. So they go back to the embassy. Billy develops the pictures, has them sent over to CIA headquarters. CIA says, yeah, that's absolutely him, gives Billy the green light to go get him. So Billy goes to the apartment complex, finds the manager, comes up with some bullshit story that he's working for the US government as like a surveyor for urban development, blah, 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 whatever. The manager immediately knows he's full of shit and basically, you know, cut to the chase. How much money are you going to bribe me? I want like $700 a month US is what he says, which doesn't seem like a lot of money to us for what we're asking. However, in Sudan, the annual income is about $300 a year. So to him, this is a shit ton of money.
Yeah.
$1 million.
Billy's over here with U.S. military DOD fuck you money budget. Immediately gives the guy $700. The guy hooks him up with
No, Nick. It's U.S. dimmer dollars. Okay? You have to get that right. It's the DOD dimmer dollars.
with an apartment right above Carlos the Jackal, and Billy gets in there with a bunch of surveillance equipment and starts spying on him. All the intel that Billy finds, Billy kicks back to his bosses at the CIA, and then they share it with all the other international intelligence community. And what ends up happening, allegedly, as far as the story goes, is that the French government really wanted to be the ones to capture the Jackal. So from this point, allegedly, a French team comes in and takes over using all of Billy's intel, but how much the CIA was actually involved is still classified, so who actually knows? So while we don't know who actually caught him, we do know how he was caught. And what Billy found out while he was surveilling the guy was that he had a toothache. So what they did is they found a dentist nearby, paid him off to actually call Carlos the Jackal, saying they were opening up a new dental clinic and that they were looking for new customers and they were offering free checkups and repairs. Carlos the Jackal, the guy with the toothache, is like, dope, I'm gonna go get this fixed. Carlos the Jackal, at this point in time, the most notorious terrorist ever that's been on the run for over a decade, considered by many to be absolutely dead. Billy Waugh goes in and captures his ass in a matter of weeks in what is probably the cleanest operation ever. After capturing Carlos the Jackal, Billy continues to work for the CIA well into his old age, doing God knows what. We don't really know because it's still classified. The next time Billy pops up is in 2001 when he is 71 years old, right after the attack on the World Trade Center. Billy said, and I quote, "On the morning of September 11, I was stunned and angry and determined to place myself in a position to do something about it. I was 71 years old when those towers fell, but I didn't give a good goddamn how old I was. My country was going to war, and for nearly nearly 50 years, that meant only one thing: I needed to get myself involved in this war also. Most people at 71 years old want to avoid staircases, and Billy Waugh at 71 wants to go to war like a complete fucking gangster. So Billy shows up at CIA headquarters ready to go to work, and they're assembling teams to ship out to the Middle East, and Billy is not getting selected. He's told that he's not going to be going, most likely because he's 71 years old. So in an act of protest, he goes out to his car, opens up his...
And Billy took that personally.
trunk and grabs out this shitty folding beach chair and walks right back into CIA headquarters. This whole place is buzzing. It's right after 9/11. Everybody's running around, sharing information, and here's Billy, a 71-year-old man in a beach chair sitting in the middle of the office like this. Eventually, Billy's boss comes up to him like, what is this? What are you doing? And Billy's like, are you gonna put me in or not? And the boss like, fine, you know what, fine, just go to Kabul, get to work. So Billy goes, recruits a team of guys just like him, and shortly after that, he is on a plane on his way to Afghanistan to hunt down Osama bin Laden with an AK-47, an MP5, a 40mm grenade launcher, and a radio. Billy hits the ground running, pretty much immediately establishes his own militia of a couple hundred guys that he's all paying to fight for him, and uses this force to go around finding everybody and anybody related to the Taliban and Al-Qaeda that he can find. While he's in theater, he participates in the Battle of Tora Bora, again, at the age of 71 years old. And after a couple of months, he comes to the conclusion they are not going to have the quick, violent capture of Osama bin Laden that he was hoping for, and that he decides that he is too old for this shit and heads back home. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is still not the end of the story.
Yes!
July 2004, Billy is 74 years old when he gets approached by the CIA and offered to go on an extremely dangerous mission where if he is captured, he will more than likely be tortured and then killed, and it is a solo mission that he will have to complete by himself. Billy immediately agrees without knowing what...
Must be done. Chat. Billy's response? Yes.
What it even is. After accepting the mission, he finds out that he will be flown into Saudi Arabia, a country that he has never been to before, where he is going to be tasked with getting picture evidence that there is a high-level terrorist there that they believe to be there. And that terrorist is Imad Mugdia, an Islamic jihadist that has conducted terror operations all over the world. Between Billy Waugh capturing Carlos the Jackal and the 9/11 attacks, he was the most wanted terrorist on the planet. So Billy goes into Saudi Arabia with nothing more than a camera. Straight from the airport, he goes and finds somebody that's willing to give him driving lessons because he doesn't really know how to drive on the streets in Saudi Arabia. After Billy's confident that he can drive on his own, he then tells the driving instructor like, hey, I think I'm good right now. Just let me drive the car around for the rest of the day. You can fuck off. From there, Billy drives to the place that Mugdia is supposed to be, and right across the street, there's this restaurant. So Billy goes, he's drinking coffee, he's hanging out, and then he notices that there is a dumpster, and that dumpster has a pretty good shot right at the front door that he believes Imad Mugdia is at. So Billy finishes up his lunch, closes out his tab, and then heads over to that dumpster. When nobody's looking, he hops inside the dumpster, whips out his camera, and is just sitting there at the door waiting. After a while, sure enough, a dry cleaner shows up delivering the dry cleaning, and guess who answers the door? Imad Mugdia. Billy snaps a bunch of pictures, waits inside the dumpster, dry cleaner drives off, Imad shuts the door, Billy waits till nobody's around, hops out of the dumpster, gets in his training car, drives back to the airport, and heads back to America. The pictures then get verified it was in fact Mugdia, and that mission gets handed off to the special forces. Billy did his part.
Oh, so he's gone full on just fucking spy. Like, this is not so much like what you guys were saying, like where he's getting like a battle boner now. He's gone full on spy. This is just, he wants in on action. It's more like he's just an action junkie at this point.
Me?
Fitting.
Billy continues working for the CIA. Again, we don't know what all he does, but in 2017, we do know that he went to Hanoi, Vietnam. And the purpose of that trip was to be a dinner guest for General Giap, the same general that he had attempted to kill all those years ago during the Vietnam War at Oscar 8. The entire interaction takes place through a translator, but the whole thing has this aura of like the two old warriors that made it to the end of the road that fought on opposite sides, and now they're just kind of reminiscing about it together. They have a long conversation over the course of hours talking about their perspectives of the war, their tactics, everything that went down, and towards the end of it, Billy informs him that he was on a green light team. He then goes on to explain what that was. He was one of the few people that was qualified to jump in behind enemy lines with a nuclear warhead and detonate it. He then informs them that early on in the war, there was a serious conversation that they were going to have him jump behind enemy lines with that nuclear warhead and blow up a pass in the Ho Chi Minh Trail with a ground detonation that would not only blow up the trail itself, collapsing it in, but it would also irradiate the earth, making it not passable for thousands, tens of thousands, millions of years. Shutting down the Ho Chi Minh Trail would have drastically changed the entire war if it even happened after that. The translator, General Giap's son, said surely there was no way America was seriously considering using nuclear weapons in Vietnam, to which Billy replied, yeah, we were. I was on the team. The only reason America didn't go through with it is because it's basically opening Pandora's box. There's been that line in the sand of nobody uses nuclear weapons ever since they were first used in Japan, and America was worried of who would use nuclear weapons next and why they would be using them. Billy then informs General Giap's son that he actually wishes that America would have went through with it, and General Giap's son is obviously deeply offended, saying, this is my homeland. I'm paraphrasing here, but Billy rebuttals, yeah, it is, but if I could have stopped this war before it started, we could have saved 58,000 of my people and 500,000 of yours. At which point General Giap himself chimes in and says, yeah, but then we may not have won the war. Clearly implying that losing 500,000 men was well worth it if it meant winning in the end. I've thought about this interaction a lot, and there's a lot of different things that you can draw from this very short interaction, but I think the moral of the story here is war is awful, and whoever's willing to do whatever it takes is probably going to be the victor.
Yeah.
This is not verifiable, but allegedly Billy Waugh's last mission was in 2011 at the age of 82 years old, where he went into Libya to assist with the overthrowing of Gaddafi. Billy would then allegedly enjoy about a decade of retirement before passing away on April 4th, 2023 at the age of 93 years old. His cremated remains were then spread during a halo jump over North Carolina. Billy's longtime boss at the CIA said, and I quote, "You'll never know 100th of the things Billy accomplished for us. Most of what Billy Waugh did was never written down. Almost everything was on verbal orders from someone like me to someone like him." And that is 1/100th of the story of Billy Waugh, the godfather of the Green Berets. Thank you for watching. Best way to support the channel is go buy some merch over at thefatelectrician.com. Quack bang, out.
So I heard a story that you got close enough to bin Laden to kill him with a pencil.
Well, I could have killed him with a pencil easily, but pencil's not going to do the fucking job. Because if I went for his heart, I might miss that son of a bitch for 4 inches and just piss him off.
Yeah.
Even at that age, he is still a ball buster. Oh, I love it. Oh my God. That was incredible. That was
Man,
absolutely
this dude's life
incredible.
is some Tom Clancy shit.
Yeah. I mean, Revan? Who knows? Clancy did a fuck ton of research into the military for all of his books. I would have very little doubt that he either researched or even interviewed Billy Waugh for, for like Rainbow Six. That would not surprise me whatsoever if he utilized Billy Waugh as a resource for that book.